Hello everybody, welcome back to a new episode of the Deadly Desires podcast with me, your host, Brandon Brooker. If you are new here, we post true crime cases like this one every single week, so make sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or if you are listening on Spotify, make sure to give me a 5-star rating, it really helps me out. So for today's episode, we are covering the mysterious death of Elisa Lam. Warning, this episode contains consistent themes of suicide. If that is something you can't hear right now, I completely understand and I will see you next time. As always, viewer discretion is advised. So we're just going to get straight into it. Elisa Lam was a 21-year-old student from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Elisa studied at the University of British Columbia, and in January of 2013, she began a solo trip through California. She began her trip in San Diego, where she stayed for a few days, before then travelling to Los Angeles on the 28th of January. The same day she checked into the infamous Cecil Hotel, which in 2011 had been renamed the Stay on Main Hotel. The Cecil Hotel opened in 1924 and was used for tourists and travellers to stay in, but then in 1929 the Great Depression devastated America. The Cecil Hotel was obviously affected, but that wasn't unusual because pretty much all businesses were affected. In the 1940s, the area which the hotel is situated began to change. The Cecil Hotel is located in an area known as Skid Row. This area has a high crime rate and a high homeless population, with around 10,000 people sleeping rough in a 4-mile radius. And with it being located in such a high crime area, this meant that the Cecil Hotel attracted some shady characters. The hotel has had some pretty scary people stay there over the years, including 2 serial killers. The first being prolific serial killer Richard Ramirez, also known as the Night Stalker, and it is believed that he committed some of his murders while he was staying at the hotel. Second is Austrian serial killer Jack Unterweger, who had killed multiple people both in Austria and the Los Angeles area. The Cecil Hotel has also had some other famous guests, one being the Black Dahlia, Elizabeth Short, and it is believed that she stayed there before her death in 1947. She was seen drinking in the bar of the hotel, and it's entirely possible that she met her killer at the Cecil Hotel. Cecil Hotel has had 16 deaths since its opening, which I initially thought was quite high, but over the course of 100 years, 16 doesn't seem like this outrageously high number. A lot of these deaths have been suicides, with a lot of these people jumping from the windows, and one case was of a woman named Pauline Otten, who jumped from her 9th floor room window and landed on a pedestrian named George Gianni, killing them both. Initially, it was believed that they jumped together, but it was found that he had his hands in his pockets and had his shoes on at the time of his death, so it was determined that he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. So it is pretty clear that the Cecil Hotel has a dark history, and this is the place where Elisa Lam was staying, so it appears that she was doomed from the start. When Elisa first checked into the Cecil Hotel, she was placed into a shared room with other guests, but was then moved to her own room because her roommates reported her behaving oddly, leaving strange notes for them. So for the other guests' comfort, she was moved to her own room. January 31st, 2013, Elisa is seen on CCTV getting into the elevator and behaving strangely. In the CCTV, she can be seen walking into the elevator and begins pressing all of the buttons. The elevator doesn't move and the doors don't shut, which initially detectives later on thought was strange and believed that there must have been an error with the elevator. However, this issue was debunked because it was found that Elisa had pressed the button for the 14th floor. However, due to the light from the button not lighting up, it was determined that she was already on the 14th floor. And as for the door not shutting, it was found that Elisa had repeatedly pressed the door hold button, so any theories to do with the elevator itself were debunked. Behaviour continues to be very strange. She can be seen poking her head and looking around as if someone was there. And she's seen hiding in the corner of the elevator as if she's hiding from this person standing outside of the elevator. But we will come back to this later. Then repeatedly walks out of the elevator, stands still and looks around. And then she begins to do these strange hand movements. Finally, she walks to the left, out of sight of the camera, but as she walks away, a shoe of another person can be seen in shot, so it is definitely possible that there was someone standing outside of the elevator. Now, the direction that Elisa goes in leads to the rooftop. There were two ways that Elisa possibly could have entered the rooftop. One was a flight of stairs which led to a door which led out onto the roof. However, this door was alarmed, and the only way this alarm could be disabled was with a key, which only staff members and hotel security had access to. Other entrance to the roof was out of a window and onto a fire escape, and this fire escape was a ladder which led directly onto the roof. In my personal opinion, I think that she was more than likely taking this route to the roof. However, it's not out of the realm of possibility that the alarm on the door just might have not been activated on this specific day. And something to me that backs this up is something a man said in the Netflix series about this case. He'd said in the documentary that he had led up against this fire exit door that goes onto the roof to try and open it, and the alarm did not go off. So that just shows that the exact same thing could have happened on the day that Elisa disappeared. Now we are going to talk a bit about her being reported missing and about the investigation into Elisa Lamb's disappearance. So Elisa was last seen alive on the elevator surveillance footage on the 31st of January. She was reported missing by her parents in Canada on the 1st of February. Elisa would call her parents every day, and they hadn't seen her for a while, so they reported her missing to police, and an investigation into her disappearance was launched. Missing posters were placed all over, the case was all over the news.
She hasn't been heard from for a week, something her family says is unlike the UBC student. 21-year-old Elisa Lam never checked out of her LA hotel, and she was traveling alone. Today, the police called on the public for help. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe has more from Los Angeles.
By the way, the Los Angeles police are handling this. It's clear it's not just a case of a missing tourist who wandered away. I spoke to the LAPD, and they were very clear that they do have some sort of evidence that it is possible that Ms. Lam is either hurt or in danger. There certainly are a number of things that do just really seem odd. In fact, they were describing it on the local news as an odd disappearance. So there are many things that will hopefully play out as they try to find her, and hopefully they will. The story of Elisa Lam, she's 21 years old. She was here on vacation by herself. She was staying in a downtown hotel that's also advertised on youth hostel websites. It is getting play here in LA. It was on the headlines of the Supper Hour News. They went live before the news conference, and there is obviously some strategy to this, that officers believe that the more they put that picture out there and the more people talk about it, there is a greater chance of finding Elisa Lam and hopefully returning her to her family and to Canada safely. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Los Angeles.
And the disappearance of Elisa Lam really stuck with people. Lots of people were very invested in this case. It was found that Elisa had visited a bookstore named The Last Bookstore on the day of her disappearance, and an employee said, quote, "She was outgoing, very lively, very friendly." She had been getting some books for her family as a souvenir, and it is said that she seemed very concerned about how she was going to be able to get these books back to the hotel by herself and just on the rest of her travels. 2 male employees ended up delivering these books for her to the Cecil Hotel. Later on, police thought that maybe these men were involved. However, surveillance video footage showed that the men dropped off these books and never returned to the hotel. So ultimately, they were ruled out as suspects in her disappearance. Elisa was missing for a total of 19 days, as she was reported missing on the 1st of February 2013, and was found on the 19th. On the 19th, guests began complaining to the hotel staff that the water system in the hotel seemed to be not functioning correctly. Guests were experiencing poor water pressure. They said that the water tasted funny and had an unusual colour to it. A member of hotel staff named Santiago Lopez was sent to discover what was causing the problem from this water system. So he made his way up onto the roof and went over and opened one of the water tanks. This is when he found the naked dead body of 21-year-old Elisa Lam floating in the water. Police were called and the search for missing student Elisa Lam was over. It had now turned into an inquiry into her death. In official police reports, the death was initially marked as unable to be determined. However, later this same day, the death ruling was changed to accidental. So now we are going to talk about some theories about Elisa Lamb's death. The first theory is that her death was a murder. Going back to the shoe being seen in the elevator footage, this person could have taken Elisa up onto the rooftop, put her into the water tank. This could have been a guest who had taken her out on the fire escape, or the more plausible theory is that a member of the hotel staff disabled the alarm with their key and took her through the door and let her drown in the water tank. This is why this theory is not the most believed theory. If Elisa had been taken up to the roof by someone trying to kill her, there would have been signs of a struggle. However, no signs of a struggle were ever found. However, some evidence which supports Elisa's death being a murder is the elevator camera footage. When analysing this footage, investigators found that the footage had been tampered with. As you can see on screen, when the elevator door shuts, there is a very obvious jump cut, meaning that some of the footage had been deleted. When the police got this footage, it was 4 minutes long. However, they found due to the clock in the bottom of the video, which is very unclear, so I'm just going to take their word for it, but it was found that a whole minute of footage was missing, which is very suspicious on the hotel's part because they were the ones who provided and handed over the surveillance footage to the police. So did the hotel staff find something in this minute long of footage involving a member of their own staff and decided that they were going to cover up this death as an accident? In this Netflix series, the manager of the Cecil Hotel, Amy Price, who had been there from 2007 to 2017, adamantly denies any sort of cover-up. But, I mean, that's pretty obvious. She's not going to openly admit, yeah, we covered up a death or a murder. She's obviously going to say that it was an accident. To further add to the theory of this being murder, to be able to get to the hatch on the tanks, there's a set of stairs and a ladder, then a big jump down. So you're trying to tell me that a person is doing all of this while carrying Elisa? I don't think so. So that's why I personally don't think, and a lot of different people don't think that this was murder. And if the killer took the fire escape route, then they would have had to carry up that ladder as well. And as you can see by the photos, it's not exactly a small ladder to carry someone up. there are a lot of complications to this theory, which is why it's not a very believed story. Moving on to the second theory is that this was just a suicide. A lot of people, again, myself included, do not believe this theory. Elisa Lam actually suffered a lot with her mental health. She'd been diagnosed with depression and bipolar 1, which is the most severe version of bipolar disorder. This suicide theory is that Elisa was suffering so badly from her mental health and that she herself climbed into the water tank. Mind you, the lid to the water tank weighed 20 pounds. So for her to have done this to herself, she would have had to pull off the lid to the tank, jump inside the tank, and then somehow put the cover back on. This water tank was 10 feet high and filled with water, so to me it seems pretty impossible for her to have pulled this cover back on when she wouldn't even been able to stand up, so she'd just be there paddling to try and keep afloat while she puts this 20-pound cover back on. I don't think so. There's also been contradictions in this theory. There have also been contradictions in whether the tank was found with the cover on or whether the tank was left open. In police reports, it was written down that the cover was on before her body was found. However, Santiago Lopez, the man who found the body, has said that the cover was open, which, if true, makes a suicide theory a higher possibility. However, more than likely, if you are going to commit suicide on a hotel roof, most people would jump off the building, not climb into a water tank to drown themselves. We are going to talk about the final theory, and that this was just a tragic accident. As previously mentioned, Elisa had issues with her mental health. It's thought that she may have had some form of delusions or hallucinations. She may have believed that someone was chasing her, hence her behaviour in the elevator, and she climbed into the water tank to hide from this person and subsequently drowned to death. Now, you are probably thinking to yourself that doesn't make sense. She was found naked. Well, it's possible that she was in the tank for a while before her death and began to experience symptoms of hypothermia and took off her clothes, because the cold, wet clothes would have just lowered her body temperature, and that's why she was found naked. I don't know if I mentioned before, but her clothes were also found just floating around her in the tank. So now I'm going to quickly cover the toxicology report taken after her death. In this report, it shows that Elisa had taken her antidepressants that day. However, it also shows that she had taken no other drugs and she had no alcohol in her system. However, on the test, it didn't test for date rape drugs, and some of these date rape drugs can cause hallucinations or psychosis. So this could link into the theory of this being an accident due to her being paranoid of being followed. So that is it for the case. However, I would like to talk about some weird coincidences regarding the death of Elisa Lam. So the first coincidence is to do with the last bookstore, which she had visited the day of her disappearance. Well, if you go into the domain of this bookstore, you can find a zip code. This code is V5G4S2. When this code is typed into Google Maps, this code pinpoints the exact site where Elisa Lam was buried in Canada. Second coincidence to do with this case is that during the time of Elisa's disappearance, there was a tuberculosis outbreak in downtown Los Angeles. And the test they used for this outbreak was called the Lam-Elisa test. That's pretty crazy. And this test was created in 2009, so 4 years prior to Elisa's death. That's a very strange coincidence. And this final coincidence is probably even crazier than the last one. A movie named Dark Water, which is originally a Japanese movie, was released, and the plot of this movie is that a girl dies in the rooftop water tanks of an apartment building. Two of the characters' names in this movie are quite coincidental too. One of them was Dahlia, and remember that the Black Dahlia Elizabeth Short was seen at the Cecil Hotel before her murder. And another character was named Cecilia, which is pretty close to Cecil, as in the name of the hotel. The girl in the movie is seen on elevator footage, which is very similar to the footage of Elisa Lam. And in this footage, the girl is wearing a red hoodie. And guess what Elisa Lam was wearing the day of her disappearance? A red hoodie. Now, you're probably thinking that someone was just morbidly inspired by the case of Elisa Lam and decided to turn the case into a movie, but you would be wrong. This movie originally came out in 2002, and then an American adaptation was made in 2005. So these movies happened years before the death of Elisa Lam, as her case happened in 2013. So, yeah, this case is pretty wild. I would really appreciate hearing your comments and opinions down below. If you're on YouTube, obviously. Do you believe it was a suicide? Do you think it was just an accident? Do you think it was murder? The overall legal ruling is that it was an accident, and usually I sometimes don't agree with that ruling in other cases, but in this case I do think that she drowned by accident. Maybe I do believe that she was struggling with her mental health and that she was paranoid that someone was following her, or that someone was actually following her and she got into the water tank to hide from them, but subsequently ended up drowning to death. But again, I would love to hear your opinions down in the comments section on YouTube. If you enjoyed this, give it a like and subscribe. Again, if you're on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, then you can give me a 5-star rating. That would help me out. With that all being said, I will see you next week for a brand new episode. Okay, bye.